Hello everyone, thanks for checking out my video. Welcome to my channel. My name is Chris. We usually talk all about koi ponds and waterfalls and water gardens, everything here, aquatic plants and fish and the whole bit. Today we're doing something a little bit different. We're going to be talking about the use of bluestone to create a sidewalk or patio area around your pond. This is a material that I've used many times in the past, and people seem to really love it. It's a really popular idea, to use for a patio or a sidewalk. So we're going to take a look at it today, and hopefully maybe you'll get some ideas for yourself. Okay, so typically there are two different types of bluestone that I purchase. One is either a cut squares, okay, they're either 2x3, 2x2, 1x3, 1x2, or 1x1. Now they also come in sizes like 18 inches, okay? So you can get something like 18 by 24, 18 by 12, 18 by 30. They come in a couple different sizes, 18 by 36 as well. So you have options. But typically for me, if I'm doing a sidewalk or patio, I want to stay, instead of, like the 18 inches, I want to stay the 12 inches and the 24 inches and the 36, right? So 1 foot, 2 foot, 3 foot. It just makes it easier to pattern things off, because then when you start mixing odd sizes in between that, like an 18-inch piece or, a 30-inch piece instead of a 24 or 36, then your patterns start to get a little crazy. Sorry, but this kind of bluestone is used a lot. For me, I'm looking at a more formal, cut square kind of patio or sidewalk. Now, the pictures that I'll show you here, I do use a combination of all these different sizes: 1x1, 1x2, 1x3, 2x2, and 2x3. Okay. Now that's not to say that you can't build your whole patio out of just 1x3s or 1x2s or 2x2s, whatever you like. Absolutely. Okay. But I've used the whole combination of the different sizes. So we'll talk about that, and I will also tell you that it comes in this irregular shape, right, which is stand up on a pallet. They're all crazy free-formed irregular pieces. Every one of them is different. So when it comes to putting that down, it's basically like putting together a whole puzzle, okay? Because you have all these different pieces and they're all different sizes and shapes, and you need to kind of figure out how they all fit together as best you can. So it's easy to do, but it takes a little creativity. You have to think about it a little bit. I like to take all the pallets off, all the pieces off of the pallet, kind of lay them out in an area, and then just visualize what might fit with what as we start bringing it into our patio area. All right. Okay, so let me sit down here. I'm going to kind of get out of the way. We'll show you some pictures and we'll talk about it. All right, so first we'll talk about the squares. So for me, typically, if I'm doing a job, it's a little more formal. We're going to try to use the squares more than the irregular pieces. Not to say that you can't, but I just feel, for me, the square cut pieces tend to fit into a more formal style. So I'll show you this sidewalk here that I've done. I've done a few jobs like this. The sidewalks, basically what we want to do is excavate some dirt out of the area we're going to do our sidewalk or patio in, and we need to dig it out just a couple inches. We need to allow for the thickness of the bluestone, maybe an inch or so of a stone dust underneath, and we're going to put landscape fabric on the bottom. We don't need a lot. We use stone dust underneath the bluestone to level it all off. Sometimes for pavers, we use like a coarse sand. I just find that under the Bluestone, the sand tends to be a little too loose and can wash away a little bit. I like using the stone dust. It's a little heavier, little chunkier, and it gets really like a solid base. So typically we excavate our area a couple inches down. We're going to put landscape fabric down first, nice heavy landscape fabric. Some landscape fabrics are really thin like paper. Get a nice heavy thick landscape fabric. It'll be much more durable and firm, and it's easier to use underneath the stone dust when you're spreading. The stone dust that we're going to put down next, since every one of these pieces, they're not always exactly the same thickness, all right? It's not a manufactured stone where every one of them is cut to the exact same sizes and thicknesses. They do tend to vary a little bit on thickness. So we can't just put down a base of a stone dust and like tamp it all down and keep it one level. All right, because our bluestone then is going to be all different levels. So typically what we do is I shovel in a bunch of stone dust, I rake it out somewhat level, okay, and it just takes time. You set in a piece of bluestone, you get it to the right height that you're looking at. I will use a rubber mallet, like a little rubber hammer, to just bang it down a little bit, sometimes even just walk on it, step on it. But the bluestone stone dust underneath, we're just gonna push in enough to give it support and level off, okay? So, typically about an inch or so, and we just rake it out and we lay our pieces in and we stuff, dust around the corners, edges underneath, lift it up, put a little more stone dust in to level it, whatever we need to do. And it just typically goes, one piece at a time. And as you're putting your bluestone pieces in, you keep adding more stone dust, rake it out, and move on back. Now, these sidewalks that I'm showing you here, I have used a 4x6 pressure treated wooden border. Okay, and I kind of like it. It kind of just gives it an edge, and it holds everything together real nice. So we'll excavate our area first, install our 4x6s down the side. Now you can do anything. You can do a brick border. You don't need any border if you don't want it, but I just like it. It kind of seals it up, closes it in, holds it all together, and I think it looks nice. So, all right. Now these 4x6s come in 8 or 12 foot lengths. So depending on the length of your sidewalk or patio area, whichever size works better for you. And when I lay these down, if I have a couple of them in a line, I will get there are these little metal plates that you can nail the plates together to tie two pieces together. Okay, so where the two boards meet, you can put a plate over it and nail in one side and nail in on the other board, and it kind of just holds it together. So that helps out. You can get the plate a little bit smaller than the height of the 4x6, so that you can put the plate further down on the 4x6 and you don't see it from the top. Okay. From there, basically you're just going to lay them all out. Now, if you go with a 4-foot sidewalk area, we don't have to do any cutting. The only time we'll have to cut is if we're, turning a corner or going on an angle, we might have to cut. But if you're smart and when you lay your sidewalk or patio out a dimension that will fit the size stone you have, you don't have to do any cutting. All right, so it's kind of nice if you can bring your sidewalk down, put all your square pieces in, come to an end, all right, and then bring square pieces all the way straight down on another angle, and you don't have to do the cutting. Now, just a little side note, these square pieces, when it says 2 by 2 or 2 by 3, they're not actually, most of the time, not exactly 2 foot by 3 foot. Sometimes instead of 24 inches, they're 23 or 23 and a half. They're going to be close, right? Instead of 3 foot, it's 35 and a half or something. They're usually just a little bit short. So just keep that in mind. Now, once we have the whole patio or sidewalk bluestone installed, then what I do is I take a couple little shovels of the stone dust and throw it on top and sweep it all into the cracks and crevices with a broom. The stone dust seems to work well. What tends to happen is as you sweep it into the cracks and crevices, after a rain, it might settle in and sink down in those cracks further. So you might have to sweep a little more in, maybe 2 or 3 times, just so that it's full and everything's settled. But once that stone dust gets in between all the cracks and crevices of this rock, it really kind of tightens it up and holds it in place really well. Now, you can also use what's called a polymeric sand. Polymeric sand is used a lot in paver patios, and what it does is it's a fine powder that you sweep in to all the cracks and crevices, and then you just mist lightly with water, and it will harden. The problem is if you have small cracks and crevices, it works well. If your cracks and crevices are bigger, it doesn't hold up. It kind of forms it's almost like a rubbery, it's solid, it solidifies. It helps to prevent weeds and stuff from coming up in between. But if you have a nice landscape fabric down and you have stone dust, the weeds aren't going to grow in it anyway. It just tends to not stick together very well if it's a big opening, like an inch or ½ inch. Okay, the stone dust seems to go in really well. Okay, so now the irregular bluestone. The irregular bluestone, like I said, is just putting together a big puzzle. We're going to put it down the same exact way. However, typically I don't use a border of the 4x6s, only because that's very square, and this irregular bluestone is not. All right. If you are ambitious, you can do a concrete edge around it. Okay. Otherwise, typically I just end it, and the grass grows right up to it, and it seems to contain and hold everything in just fine. So this goes down the same way, right? Excavate a couple inches out, put your landscape fabric down, start shoveling in stone dust, and rake it out, level it off, and start putting your pieces down. You'll look for bigger pieces that have more of a straight edge. Now, when I say straight edged, I don't mean okay. It could be a curve, whatever, but as long as that edge border is not all like jagged and broken up, you can use that nicely, for your edges. And then just start working in. Now, these are crazy pieces. Every one of them is different. Every, piece is going to fit together different. So just try to get yourself pieces that fit as close and as tightly as possible. If you have some larger gaps, like you're going to end up with some bigger holes in between, you might have to break some of the rock up and use some chunks and pieces in different areas just to kind of fill it in. Again, once you have all your bluestone down, throw a couple of shovels of stone dust on the top of the whole patio area, sidewalk area, and just sweep it all into those cracks and crevices. Again, you might have to do it a couple times. You know, you're going to sweep the stone dust in, it's going to kind of settle, right? Especially when it gets wet, it's going to settle in. And sweep a little bit more. But once you have it pretty full, you know, and set, it's pretty secure. It doesn't wash away very easily in the rain. I will tell you that over time, you know, maybe over the course of a year, it might, you know, wash out a little bit here, or might settle down a little bit there. What's underneath your stone, your bluestone, will stay nice and firm and secure. It's usually just what's in between that sometimes in like a heavy thunderstorm or rain, some of it could wash out a little bit, or it could you know, just settle in further. But it's usually just a matter of sweeping a little bit, you know, more on top, and you're good to go. For the most part, on average, you know, keeping this maybe once a year, sweeping a little, you know, topping it off seems to work great. And again, the polymeric sand, in this case for me, I don't like it. It just does not hold up very long, okay? The gaps and spaces are too big. All right, so you know, typically if I'm buying all this stone dust, you know, to do the job with, when I'm done, I'm going to try to keep a 5-gallon bucket or two of it, you know, and just throw it in a shed or throw it in a corner in the garage, and I have it. And you know, if I ever need to sweep in a little bit more, I have it. It's easy. But otherwise, so I mean, you can see here on these pictures, there's a ton of different ways to use it. I've used these big pieces of irregular bluestone to form steps. You know, when we're, you know, we want to do like a different level, and we have a retaining wall. Maybe we want steps down to come down to a patio area. They fit for step treads really nice. Now, both of the either irregular bluestone or the, you know, squares come in different thicknesses. The pallets generally of the stand-up irregular bluestone, they vary pallet to pallet. Not every piece on the pallet is going to be the same thickness, all right? However, for the most part, you can buy pallets that in general are thicker. You can buy pallets that are in general thinner, all right? Now, I've never had a problem using the thinner stuff. Some of the thick pieces are really, really heavy, and it requires, you know, multiple guys to pick these things up and carry them and move them. The thinner stuff is a little bit easier, and as long as you have a nice solid base of the bluestone dust underneath it, you know, you're not going to have a problem with it breaking, you know, unless you're going to drive a car over it or a huge tractor or something over it. It could crack. But if you have a nice firm base of stone dust there underneath your bluestone, you'll be just fine. So for me, typically the thinner stuff works a little better. Now, thinner, I mean, it's still a good inch thick, all right? The cut bluestone, the squares, you can buy it in either, you know, 1 inch or, you know, 2 inch, or, you know, inch and a half, or 2.5 inch. Again, depending on the application, I mean, the thick stuff is really, really heavy. Now, typically, I would say a mason, you know, or a landscape, a hardscape specialist, if you're going to use concrete as the base of your patio, you know, and set the stone into concrete, then the thinner one is probably fine. If you're dry laying it, you might want to go with the thicker. Again, it depends on, you know, the application. But I'm telling you, I've used the thinner stuff a lot, and I've never had pieces breaking and cracking and stuff. You're not going to crack it by walking over it. it's still pretty thick and you know, strong enough, you know, but if you know you're gonna drive your car over it, like I said, it can crack. Otherwise, that's about it. I just wanted to give you a good idea of, you know, what bluestone looks like around your pond. So it's a really nice, really natural looking stone. Now, the irregular bluestone, some of it you can get a little more brownish, tannish color. Some of it's going to be more that blue-gray, all right? The cut bluestone can come in what they call natural clef, which was basically, you know, more of the browns and tans mixed in with the blue. Every piece can be a little bit different color, and okay, or more expensive, you can get, you know, what they call true blue. It's very consistent in color, and it's more that every piece is that same blue-gray kind of color. It costs a little more for that, but again, depending on your use, right? Some people like, you know, the blue, you know. Some people are going to say, no, I like the natural and the different colors in the stone and stuff. So, you know, either way, again, that's your choice. But those are some options for you. All right. So I hope kind of inspired you here a little bit. I hope, you know, you like the idea. Maybe you think about doing something around your patio. The bluestone is really durable stone. It's really nice looking. It's pretty, and it's not rocket science to put it down. It takes a little muscle and it takes a little thinking, but other than that, it's pretty simple. All right, so thank you for watching. You know, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, check out my videos on all the koi pond stuff, and you know, thanks for watching, and hopefully we'll see you back again soon. Take care. Thank you. Bye.